Our program is entitled On the Shoulders of Giants. Today, we will honor Central's great leaders. I will now recognize our special guest. First, we have Ms. Debbie Hawley, School Board Chairman. Next, we have Ms. Lydia Martin, Chief Communications Officer. And last, we have Mrs. Bonita Williams, former Fort Pierce Central teacher, dean, and coach. Enjoy your presentation, and thank you, guys.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and presentation of colors.
Colors, attention! Carry colors. Forward, march! Mark time, march! Colors, hold! Left, face! Present, colors!
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands for, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, colors! Outward, face! Forward, march!
Every day is a great day to be a Cobra, and I'm just very excited about today's presentation this morning because we're going to be honoring some amazing people who set the foundation for the very school that you're sitting in. It is also my honor to introduce our MC who will be presiding over this morning's program, Mr. Harry Belafonte Williams. Harry Belafonte Williams is a product of the St. Lucie County school system, a graduate of the first class of Fort Pierce Central High School. He later attended Florida A&M University, graduating with a Bachelor of Science and earning a commission in the United States Marine Corps. After a 4-year stint on active duty, he returned to St. Lucie County as a teacher and coach at Fort Pierce Central High School. He retired from education after a stellar 34-year career in 2015. He has been married for over 40 years to Mrs. Bonita McCrae Williams. They have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. He holds membership in several organizations, including life membership in the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Mr. Williams' favorite quote is, "A setback is a setup for a comeback." Please join me in welcoming Mr. Harry Belafonte Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Good morning, Cobras. Once a Cobra, always a Cobra. Today, you're going to take a brief journey through time. Time for Fort Pierce Central High School began in August of 1970. Historically speaking, Fort Pierce Central is the child of Lincoln Park Academy and Dan McCarty. In those times, Lincoln Park Academy was a 100% black high school. Dan McCarty was about 97, 98% white high school. In 1968-69, there was a court order that said these schools must merge to integrate. They built the school at 1101 Edwards Road. In the beginning, it was an experiment. All the 9th graders in the district attended. Depends on who you talk to. The school was given two choice names. Some people called it Dan McCarty Annex. Some people called it Edward Road 9th Grade Center. Depends on who you were talking to. The kids at Dan McCarty, they call it the Annex. The kids at Lincoln Park called it Edward Road 9th Grade Center. I had the dubious distinction of attending Fort Pierce Central for the very first year in August of 1970. It was a very tumultuous time in St. Lucie County. As you know Fort Pierce now, the dividing line was Orange Avenue. If you lived north of Orange Avenue, most likely you were black. If you lived south of Orange Avenue, most likely you were white. Fort Pierce Central was the catalyst that changed that. Over a period from 1970, the school has had 10 principals. 4 of them are seated before you this morning. The students will describe the 6 that are missing. There will be a test at the end. If you do not pass the test, you will spend your weekend in the auditorium. That means you best pay attention. The principals, beginning with Mr. Perdue, will be represented by students so that we can expedite the program and move it along. The principals that you see in front of you now, from your left, is Mr. James Sullivan. The next principal is Mrs. Gloria Johnson Scott. Principal number 6. The next principal you seated before you is Mr. Todd Smith. Principal number 9. And the principal to your far right is Mrs. Monterey Buchanan. Principal number 10. Principal numbers 1 and 4 will be presented by Mr. Lonnie Reese. Principals 2 and 3 will be presented by Ms. Kayla Jerger. And principals 7 and 8 will be presented by Mr. Andy Rodriguez. Remember, there's a test at the end. Everybody got that? You will now hear descriptions of the giants whose shoulders we stand upon. Mr. Reese, would you please join me at the stage?
Hello, I'm Lonnie Reese, and I'm gonna read the foundation. A new decade with the creation of new traditions and ideas with strange and familiar faces. This was the forecast of a new way of life. That was the beginning of Fort Pierce Central High School. Those colossal buildings stood waiting for us to outline its newborn life. With its capable and ever-dependable administrative staff, Mr. John Perdue harmonizes the clutter and confusion into organized, harmonious school system. Heavily laden, the administration solved the problems that arose and constructed the guiding principles for today and tomorrow. Throughout the year, the administration worked together preparing us, the Cobras, for that long-awaited moment when we must leave the nest and face the world on our own.
Hi, I'm Kayla Jerger, and I will be reading about Ned T. Richardson, Jr. Fort Pierce Central has a new man at the reins this year. His name is Ned T. Richardson, Jr. Mr. Richardson came here from Palatka Central. He is a native of Kansas and an ex-Marine. He came to Florida in 1962, where over a 10-year period, he headed the math department at Satellite, U Galley, and Cocoa High Schools. He has proven himself a good leader and has worked hard to improve conditions at Fort Pierce Central. Now I'll be reading about Robert Jefferson Sr. Hunchos. Their word is a law, their power is absolute, their decisions affect all faculty and students at this institution of learning. Their traditional policy of high morals comes under no argument. The administration is made up of the head hunchos, and they rule every aspect of life at Fort Pierce Central High School. Robert Jefferson Sr. is the principal and #1 head huncho. He dictates all school policy and makes all important decisions regarding everything connected with everything. The performance and appearance of Central falls squarely on his shoulders, as it has since Central became a high school in 1970. Thank you.
Mr. Reese is coming back again to describe principle number 4.
I'll be talking about Mr. Gallman. The Fort Pierce Central Hammer-Dry yearbook staff interviewed our new principal, Mr. Gallman. We collected little bits and pieces of his past, present, and future. We asked him what he thinks about Central and if he liked working here. He replied, "I find it interesting, stimulating, and different, but I do enjoy it here," he stated. "It will not be necessary to make any changes, but with the administration and teachers working together, the students will benefit." Mr. Gallman wants to be a successful and a devoted administrator. He has a truly positive attitude about the community and the school. "We should be proud of our school and proud of being a part of Fort Pierce Central Cobras," he stated. Mr. Gallman was born in a little town south of Ocala, Santos, Florida. He attended high school at Bellevue and Santos and went to college at Florida A&M University, where he received his bachelor's degree. At the University of South Florida, he received his master's degree. Mr. Gallman taught science for 10 years at various Florida schools and instructed in the first phase of Fort Pierce Central in room F202. Mr. Gallman started his administrative career as assistant principal of Longwood Elementary for a year. Later, he was the assistant principal of Fort Pierce Elementary for 2 years, and then became the principal of Fort Pierce Elementary for 3 years. We hope Mr. Gallman enjoys working at Fort Pierce Central and wish him the best of luck and hope he succeeds in everything he wants to accomplish.
Now you will hear remarks from our first principal that is present. That would be Mr. James Sullivan.
Thank you, Ms. Williams, and to the other distinguished principals and the faculty and staff and all of the students at Fort Pierce Central High School. Good morning, Cobras.
Good morning. Good morning.
My career started teaching at Vero Beach High School in Vero Beach, and I remember every year at functions I would see Mr. Jefferson. He would ask me, "Why aren't you working for me? I need a black English teacher at Central." And after about 7 years, I said, "Okay, Mr. Jefferson, I'll take you up on the offer." And I came to Fort Pierce Central High School in 1977 as the first black English teacher. And little did I know after I got to Central that Mr. Jefferson wanted me to be the department chair, the English department chairperson. And I said to him, "Mr. Jefferson, I just got here. This is my first year. And I know that you have other people that you can take for this position. I'd like to get my feet wet first." But he said, "No, you're going to be my black English teacher, and you're going to be the department chair." And so it started a great career at Fort Pierce Central High School. 10 years, and then I became the principal after serving for a couple of years as the assistant principal, one of the assistant principals at Central. During this time, a lot had been poured into the unification of the school. Mr. Goldman started the program, Pride Makes the Difference, and we all had pride pins, and we talked about the importance of having pride in yourselves and then going on to have pride in others as well. One of the things I distinctly remember as we were getting ready for the senior class one year, every year we took the trip to Disney, the senior class trip, and the president of the senior class was one of our black students. And the experience happened this way. When the students boarded the bus, all of the white students got on buses, and all of my black students were on buses. And this was really a challenge, a test for me, as well as the senior class president. And I remember the senior class president, Bernard White, saying to me, "Mr. Sullivan, do you see what's going on? All of the white students are on buses, and all of the black students on the bus. What are we going to do?" And I said, "Bernard, you're the senior class president, and I'm looking to you to make this right." And this was one of the first challenges in leadership for him, who's now, I believe, a colonel in the United States Army. He said, "Well, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it." And he proceeded to get volunteers of the black students. "Come on, go on this bus, get on this bus, get on this bus." And it was a time of unity, a time of coming together, and the year just really went on a great note because of students coming together and taking the leadership role. So one of the things I would like to share is it's important as students that you begin to develop leadership qualities and that you begin where you are now, because you don't know how far it will take you. I used to say to students all of the time, if you can conceive of something, if you have a vision in your mind of what you want to be and where you want to go, and believe in your heart that you can do it, there is nothing that will prevent you from achieving what you believe and what you have conceived. Fort Pierce Central has grown tremendously since I left, and I am so proud of what I see, what I've seen, and the people I've met, the students that I've met. I know that you will continue to grow and that you will be great citizens in our society. Thank you so much for having me today. So, let me do something else I used to do when I was a principal. It's hard when you give us a microphone. But I used to say to the students at the pep rallies, "Give me a C. Give me an O. Give me a B. Give me an R. Give me an A. What's that? Say it again." Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Our next principal that is currently present with us here is Mrs. Gloria Johnson Scott.
I tell you, Mr. Sullivan does it every time. He makes the path difficult. Cobras, greetings. It is great to be on the Cobra campus again. And just watching the students prepare this morning for this program was very, very encouraging. When I came to Central, we had a great band, we had a great chorus, but through the years, some of that declined as we added more and more high schools to our county. So to see the numbers in the chorus this morning, and especially the number of young men in the chorus, is very, very gratifying. I started my career in education at Lincoln Park Academy in 1966. In 1968, the court order was issued that the schools must be desegregated in this county. So I was one of the teachers who was chosen to go to the annex as a math teacher under Mr. Perdue, the very first principal of Fort Pierce Central. I taught there for 2 years and then went out on maternity leave. Upon returning to the system, I was assigned to Dan McCarty Middle School as a mathematics teacher. They were called junior high schools then. And it was Mr. Jefferson who approached me in 1973 and said, "Come to Fort Pierce Central with me. I need a science teacher." So in 1973, I started another career at Fort Pierce Central High School. And I remained at Fort Pierce Central as a science teacher and eventually head of the science department until 1986, where I was then assigned as an assistant principal at Lawnwood Elementary School. I shouldn't say lasted, but I stayed there 1 semester and had the opportunity to come back to Fort Pierce Central as an assistant principal because Mr. Sullivan was promoted to another job where he was traveling and making ground roads for us in Tallahassee and so forth. So I remained at Central from 86 to 89, but I was able to serve under Mr. Sullivan. He was my principal also. And at that time, one of the projects that I was very, very proud of was the institution of performance-based. This was a program that helped so many young people who needed a non-traditional way of finishing high school. At that time, computers were on the move. We were beginning to use computers, so these students were able to do their classes on computers and progress as quickly as they put the energy into the classes. Mrs. Williams and her husband were a big part of that program as well. Well, I thought I would be able to work with that program, but lo and behold, the superintendent of schools says, "We're opening up Port St. Lucie High School, and you're going there as an assistant principal." There was no negotiations. He had made up his mind. So in 1989, I was assigned to Port St. Lucie High School with Mr. Kumo to open up Port St. Lucie High. I remained there until 1933, and at that time, I was appointed principal of Fort Pierce Central High School. So that little lady that you see on the wall with the big smile, it is I. Central is very, very dear to my heart. Not only did I teach at Central, I was an assistant principal at Central. I was principal at Central, 2 of my 3 daughters graduated from Fort Pierce Central, and last year, my grandson, one of the 2 grandsons, graduated from Fort Pierce Central. So we have kind of a little legacy here with Central. However, I do need to let you know that everything was not glamorous. In 1993, when I was appointed principal of Central, 3 months into my appointment, we had an occurrence here that I thought was long gone. The skinheads marched in front of the school. But it was at that time that I saw the continuity of the administration from the district level. We would meet, we planned what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. And in so many ways, it reminded me of Dr. Martin Luther King and his civil rights movement. Peaceful. We want the best for everyone, and we want to do this right. So we went back to the good old Western days, and we circled the buses around the school so that the kids would be protected and they didn't have to see for 2 weeks what was going on across the street. We were able to get through that. We were able to implement academies in the school that benefited the students so that when they graduated, they had a certificate of something that they could do, whether it was electronics, whether it was architectural drawing, whether it was health education, so forth. Those were difficult times, but those were times that were good also, because in many instances, they brought out the good in the people who surrounded you. And with that, young people, I don't want you to be sidetracked into thinking that because there are laws on the book, that everybody believes in those laws and follow those laws. You can legislate anything you want to legislate, but you cannot legislate people's attitudes and how they feel. Just ask a National Football League player who wanted to become an owner of an NFL team. They will tell you attitudes are not the same as yours. They're deep, ingrained thoughts and beliefs that you cannot legislate away. What we do, what we say, how we act, or a result of what we have lived, what we have learned. But it is up to all of you to change that. Get to know each other. It's time for America to move forward. We all have biases. I have biases. But we have to get beyond our biases. What we need for America to do is to open up opportunities. Not so much interested in the outcomes, but the opportunities. If you're never allowed a seat at the table, young people, you're never promoted. Your side of the story is never heard. Just recently, the Oscars were presented. How many women were nominated for Oscars as directors or producers? How many minorities were nominated for Oscars as producers or directors? And I'm sure we've all seen some very good movies that we thought, this is really good. Somebody's going to be nominated here, but it didn't happen. So what I'm saying to you is that you can be very, very good, but you have to know that the attitudes of the people around you are open and willing to hear your side of the story. So never give up. My motto is winners never quit and quitters never win. If I did not believe in that, I would not have interviewed 7 different times for an assistant principalship in St. Lucie County. I was qualified. I knew I could do the job, but was constantly passed over. But fortunately, there were people with the right attitude who said, don't quit. So I say to you, you will meet challenges in this world. They will be hard, they will be difficult, but press on. Do not quit. It's time for America to move forward in its race relations. We are deteriorating, but each of you can make a difference. And people like us are depending on you to carry America forward. Thank you so much. And to the seniors, happy graduation in May.
Thank you, Mrs. Scott. Andy's coming back. I taught math here for 34 years. Of the 10 principals, I work for 80% of them. What number is 80% of 10, y'all? All right, y'all good. There's still a test at the end.
Stephen Valencia was principal of Fort Pierce Central from 1999 to 2005. During Mr. Valencia's time at Fort Pierce Central, Central was crowded, but was the center of many students' education. Many students started at Fort Pierce Central before St. Lucie West Centennial High School or Treasure Coast High School even opened. Jhansi Williams was the principal of Fort Pierce Central from 2005 to 2009. He had the pleasure of working with architects to plan our new building. Mr. Williams, in 2009, opened the new school. When talking about moving into a new, updated facility, Mr. Williams said, "It's just wow. We'll have technology, no problems, and all the tools a teacher needs to help students."
Who was the last principal at 1101 Edwards Road? Y'all not paying attention. Who was the first principal here? Okay, y'all might make a C on the test. Our next principal, you all should know, Mr. Todd Smith.
Good morning. We're going to deviate from a couple of presentations and tell a story. And we often tell a story because there's always a danger in a single story. So this is the story of Fort Pierce Central High School over a period of 10 years. To the students and staff of Fort Pierce Central High School, I say good morning and welcome. I would also like to welcome the guests and past principals that are sharing the stage with me this morning. As a high school principal, you're often conflicted with responsibilities and engagements. You sit back and question yourself. You wonder, in my situation, the question was, why was I appointed the principal of Fort Pierce Central High School in 2009? They have dynamic teachers and students, but why Fort Pierce Central High School? I questioned myself and I asked, where would this journey lead and for how long? How long would I oversee this great educational institution? Well, the question was answered 10 years later. This year, on January 15, 2020, I sat in my office at the new school as principals often do, reviewing test data and scores. I was alerted to an email by your very own Mrs. Foreman, Mrs. Buchanan, and Ms. Stewart. They asked me to come join this celebration. I quietly asked myself and said, why? I have a school to lead. More importantly, data drives instruction. It has to drive the new school. And I felt compelled to focus on my current needs. As I pondered the invite, I reflected on my own personal data. I realized that I was a principal at Fort Pierce Central High School for 38% of my educational career. I was honored to be recognized as the proud principal of Fort Pierce Central High School for 20% of its existence. Mr. Williams will have a math question for that, so think about that. A decade elapsed during our time together from 2009 to 2019. Sitting in my office, I was suddenly overcome with emotion and inspired to share some personal thoughts with you. I was immersed in 10 glorious years of Central pride. Throughout my tenure, students and staff often heard me say that we are measured by a letter grade. Think about June, when the school grades come out and how they want to measure us. But I said to the students and staff, that will not define us, nor will obscure our achievements. While I was sitting in my office that January evening, I realized that I was wrong. Schools should not be defined by a letter grade, but I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the letters have defined and united our Fort Pierce community for 50 years. Those letters are F, P, C. In the hallways, courtyards, and classrooms, in athletic fields, you often heard FPC or Cobras. Today, I'll add HS to FPC. Cobras, when the world sees FPC, HS, you're identified and defined as Fort Pierce Central High School. After 10 years of service, this is how Fort Pierce Central High School is defined. When people see the letter F, they assume it means Fort. When I see the letter F, I think about family. Students and staff, take a moment and think about that word family. What pictures enters your mind? As a principal at Central, I saw the random acts of kindness. I witnessed them every day. Over the course of 10 years, I saw students and teachers alike supporting each other as they often struggled to overcome barriers that were placed in the past. Think about it. Standardized tests, cell phones, dress code, tardies, and in the old days with my favorite friend, Miss Latimer, trying to leave campus early without a purple pass. As I stand here and the students before you will reminisce, they often saw Miss Latimer in their rearview mirror coming after them in that golf cart. But honestly, when I look at my rearview mirror, I only see one thing, and that's a family that's come together. When people see the word P, they think about peers. When I see the word P, or letter P, I think about passion. I'm reminded of the C of purple and gold, prominently displayed in our auditorium, at our athletic events, and our community. I saw it along 25th Street. Ms. Buchanan saw it this year as we marched in the Martin Luther King Day parades. I saw in classrooms, passion, hot topics were discussed respectfully, permeating throughout the rooms. I saw students, regardless of grade level, race, or opinion, collectively working together to make Central the best high school in the nation. When people see the word C, or letter C, they think about Central. When I see the letter C, I think about courage. Over the years, the Cobras have demonstrated that courage is taking chances, regardless of the outcome. Courage is standing up, as Ms. Johnson talked about, for what's right all the time, in spite of the perceived or mainstream public opinion. Courage is participating in dual enrollment, advanced placement classes, career certification courses, athletics, clubs, and most importantly, community service. Your outcome is not guaranteed, but you're a better person for trying, and that's Cobra Courage. When people see the letter H, they think about high, as in high school. When I see the letter H, I think about humility. Cobras, you have shown me over the course of 10 years that it's okay to be wrong, but more importantly, to admit that you were wrong. And honestly, apologize for it. Cobras, you taught me that there's always going to be somebody a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, maybe even richer. But you've demonstrated that it's okay. When you act with humility, you make the world a better place. The world is a better place because of the 50 years of Fort Pierce Central High School. When people see the word or letter S, they think about school. When I see the S, I think about success. Over the past 10 years, over 5,000 students had the opportunity to shake my hand when we handed them the diploma. They graduated on time, moving from about 61% to 98% of graduation within 4 years. Over 700 of those students graduated with their AA degree before their high school diploma. When you think about that, think about where they moved on to. Well, they moved on to college and careers, because over the course of 10 years, we've averaged over $5 million in scholarships and grants per year. Not to be outdone, let's not forget about the performing arts and athletics. We've excelled in athletics, earned industry certifications, superior ratings in all contests, military appointments, and twice, 2011, Miss Holly, they took my A away from me, but twice we're an A-rated school. That's 2011 and 2014, and Miss Williams and Mr. Williams will still argue that point, okay? If I close my graduation ceremonies for the past 10 years, I've always concluded with Cobras. Be positive, make your future, make good choices, do what you love, and love what you do. Cobras, today is February 28, 2020. What's that day mean to you? It means that your journey continues. Please remember this one fact as we leave this auditorium today. You'll always have an identity. You'll always be a Cobra. You can always come home. And I, formerly known as the proud principal of Fort Pierce Central High School, applaud every person who attended or taught at Fort Pierce Central High School. Cobras, I want to thank you for allowing me to define FPCH over my tenure as family, passion, courage, humility, and success. Central can, and for 50 years, we have demonstrated that Central did. We are FPC, Mrs. Buchanan, Mrs. Foreman, and Ms. Stewart. I want to thank you for allowing me to come home. As Mr. Williams started, once a Cobra, always a Cobra. Congratulations.
You've just been on a journey of 9 principles and 49 years. We are now in year 50. The principal that you will now hear from is Mrs. Monterey Buchanan.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Let's do it all over. Good morning, everyone. I am the proud principal of Fort Pierce Central High School. And I'm standing here today to share with you a little bit of my journey. I have to follow behind eloquent speakers. I have to follow behind everyone that shared today, and I am a bit nervous. But I will share with you a little bit of my story. I am a West Indian. I was born in the island of Jamaica. I spent my childhood in Jamaica, 12 years, and no, I'm not from the town. I am from the country. Shoes was a luxury for me growing up. Running water was a luxury for me growing up. I learned at a young age how to take care of a family. See, my mother, when I was about 6 years old, started coming to America to work, to clean houses, to make money to send back to my family. My family was my dad, my 3 brothers, and I. So I quickly became, honestly, the woman of the house. Why? I had to clean, I had to cook, I had to do what it takes when mommy was away. At the age of 12, my family and I immigrated to America. We lived in Long Island, New York. Sounds really fancy, huh? We literally lived on the last street where my brothers and I attended one of the most affluent schools in Long Island. That's Harbor Fields High School. We lived in my grandmother's basement. If you don't know what a basement looks like, my dad would joke and say, it's as if you're buried before you died, because you can't really see outside. And we went to this school, and I'll tell you right now, of the probably 740 kids or so in that school, there were 10 black kids. And I was probably related to all the others, to be honest. But I'll tell you this, I didn't really experience racism per se. My school, it was about the money. Who's your mom and dad? How much money do they make? What Ivy League school are you going to attend? I wasn't thinking about all that. I did my work, I did. And I started to run track. I was recruited actually from middle school to start running on the high school team. And I didn't really know my potential. And my coach, Coach Zeitler, he groomed me. I would fuss at him, but he groomed me as an athlete and an academic. At a school where not many of the kids look like me, I finally start becoming someone. And I don't even like to say that, because you're always someone. But I guess in my mind, as a teenager, I started to see my potential. But it really didn't matter, because to go to college, you need a green card. To go to college, you need money. So we were still in the process. So even though I was probably one of the fastest in the county and made states and ran, like we'd say, like Usain Bolt, my life wasn't gonna be bright, because there seemed to be no way out. However, my senior year, I was offered scholarships. I got my green card, everything was right. And I was offered a full scholarship to St. John's University. I was sharing with a student just yesterday, and Miss Emerson knows who that student is. I was sharing with him the first day that I set foot at St. John's University. And I said to him, I remember what I wore that day. I remember wearing inappropriate shoes. I had to take those high heels off and walk around with them in my hand. But I looked up and I said, I'm gonna do something with my life. I'm gonna make a difference, and I'm gonna work. And from that day until you see me standing right now, I have worked. A lot of people, I don't talk about the things that I do. And I know one principal mentioned it before. You know, sometimes you're not sought out right away because no one knows who you are. Coming to St. Lucie County, I'll tell you right now, my first job was at Treasure Coast High School when it was brand new as a school counselor. And I learned right away about working hard. One of my mentors was a Miss Diane White, and she taught me how to work. And I worked, and I worked, and after 4 years, I needed more of a challenge. I needed to be where I felt I would be most impactful. So I did a lateral move and worked at Westwood High School. Westwood High School as a 9th grade guidance counselor, 261 kids, I'll never forget it. Guidance counselors, it was like a dream come true. And that began my real journey. And I say that because that's when I decided I wanted to be a principal. And I was helping and I was doing my best. And someone saw that. And someone guided me in that pathway to principalship. And when my name was out there, if I got lucky, I got lucky. That's how I looked at it. And my first assistant principal was at assistant principalship was at Centennial High School. And from there, I was named principal at Forest Grove Middle School. And I was so happy to be back over here. The reason being, that's my purpose. And now I'm standing in front of you, and I'm telling you this. I have driven by Fort Pierce Central, going towards Forest Grove Middle School, obviously. And I've always passed by this beautiful school. And I've always admired it, and I've always admired the leader, Mr. Smith. And I knew on the outside what a wonderful school this was. But I never really thought about, I'll be the principal of that school one day. And now here I am. I'm living my dream. I truly am. And I'll tell each and every one of you, nothing gets me down. My days are wonderful. With you, it's always great. And even though sometimes students, you get in trouble and you might be suspended or any such thing, every day is a new day for me. So my message here, and I want to read it because most times I start speaking and I go off topic, but I want to share with you truly what I've been writing since Miss Foreman told me about this. And I want you to hear what I want to say to you, and I hope you get something out of it. Young people, champion and embrace the multicultural beauty and power of today's America. Steve Stoute was born June 26, 1970, as an American businessman and author. Stoute is the founder and CEO of The Translation, a marketing agency, and the author of The Tanning of America. He wrote about how hip-hop created a culture that rewrote the rules of the new economy. Now I want to talk to you about the tanning of America from my point of view. What's happening in the culture of hip-hop is a mirror of the new America. The new generation of thinkers, innovators, leaders, and activists, that's you. My leadership style and my experience is a reflection of the new America. Racism, although still an issue, oftentimes is disguised or even obliterated by other more pervasive issues, such as gender discrimination, sexual discrimination, terrorism, and cultural bias. The struggle we face today sometimes is difficult to sum up in words. Many of you may question, is racism really still an issue? The reason is, look around you. My ancestors can be traced to Scotland, Africa, the West Indies, even Asia. Who am I? Who are you? When you ask, what am I? Are you mixed? Are you black? Are you white? If you ask me that question, I'll simply tell you I'm a black woman. The belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another, that's racism. What makes anyone superior to the other? As a leader of this dynamic school, my experience is definitely different from my predecessors. Of course, I am not fighting the same battles of desegregation and organized anti-Black groups such as the KKK. My fight is quite unique. It's a fight against the old way of thinking. The reality, when you get to know me, I truly believe that I represent the new America. Let's be realistic. Racism does exist, but how do I experience it? And how do you experience it? The reality is, I truly do not care whether someone dislikes me because of my color. In fact, I know I'm beautiful, independent, intelligent, proud, and you should know that too about yourself. That's the message that I want to send to you. The discussion of racism, although a very sensitive topic, it should be discussed. When you love yourself and believe in yourself, you see beyond color. I love and treat you the same way that I would want to be treated. I don't care about the color of your skin. However, I do care about what Martin Luther said, the content of your character. When you look in the mirror, you should say to yourself, I love me. That person looking back at you, it's what's within that's most important. I see you talking or conversing with your peers at lunchtime. All colors, races, cultures, integrated. Why? We are all human. We hurt the same, find joy in similar things. A fact, the tanning of America is more than just a paradigm shift. It's a reflection of the new America. Yes, some people are mortified and will deny the reality. Racism should be non-existent. However, we have work left to do. Racism is taught, not to be morbid, but eventually we older folks, we will die, and guess who will be in charge of the new world? You will. Eventually, we need to do this. We need to eliminate the generational transmission of negativity and adapt and adopt to the new America. Or you will, like our ancestors, practice hatred or racism and could repeat the cruelties that once existed. Note I said our. Fact, who knows exactly who our ancestors are? Yes, slavery was reality, and slavery of the mind is way more destructive. In existence only, we must make a change. Mahatma Gandhi said, you must be the change that you want to see in this world. I am the new America. I have eclectic taste in music. I love all types of food, especially Italian food. I make a really good lasagna. I love Broadway shows, but I'm also Jamaican, and I love oxtail, and I love rice and peas, and I love curry goat. My point is simply this: you are who you are. You're not just defined by that color of your skin. What you need to do is this: stand up for injustice, embrace your differences. You are the generation of truth. You are the generation of love. And this America, our America, is a place to be your own unique self. May my leadership inspire you to be more and become whomever you choose to be. Always feel free to converse with me. The future is right here in this room. Fort Pierce Central is the future of America. And I am proud to say, I am your new principal, and I will always hold my head high, and I will always represent you well, because I'm in the best darn school in the state of Florida.
Can we get a rousing round of applause for the Giants? We will now have 3 student-led activities. The first activity will be a musical selection by the Fort Pierce Central High School Chorus. a performance by Fort Pierce Central Divas. Step 2. We're now going to be entertained by the Lyrical dancers. FBC dance program. Would you please stand at this time as we prepare to sing the Negro National Anthem?
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a
full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, ma'am. You may be seated, please. We will now have closing remarks from Mrs. Buchanan.
Thank you, sir. I want to formally thank each and every one, all the former principals that came out today. I definitely want to thank Ms. Foreman and her crew that made this a possibility. Ms. Stewart, thank you as well. Thank you, students, for being an extraordinary audience. And now we are going to dismiss.